receive your mind.
You can be like me when I get it, and if it's tiny enough, if I do this.
I can kind of do that. I just kind of got to mask my squinting.
You're good. Dirk's out of town. I know you guys are really surprised.
I'm not.
Let me guess.
He didn't tell me what. I think I even texted him last week. I need you to let me know what your schedule is. So.
Well, he should know what the schedule is. We schedule it at the beginning of the year.
Well, basically, if the sun's not out, it's snowing. It's
Thank you for coming, everyone. Let's start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for coming. We want to make a note that Dr. Gee will be here shortly. He is advocating for our tennis bubble over at P&Z, and Mr. Moore is out of town. Just an FYI. With that being said, I believe we need to amend the agenda.
We need to amend the agenda, and I move that we amend the item 9.c to change it from approve or deny the Promise Academy charter, because it has already been approved, to acceptance and review for filing of your annual review.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, any discussion on that? Do we have any signed in visitors?
We do have 2 signed visitors.
Okay.
We should probably, do we need to move to
Yes,
the new agenda? Or is it just approved? with
We
that
just amended.
adjustment?
Yeah.
Good.
All right. We don't have any papers for her to fill out. Mrs. Crawford, you are up.
Tricia Crawford. I have a comment and I'm not sure where it fits in, so I'm just going to add it in under the procedure 1500 that deals with the board agenda. 3 years ago, when I came to the board meeting, I asked Dr. Gee if we could have a sign-in before the meeting and that we could make comments to the board, that you would take that under consideration when you were in deliberation. You did that. I thank you for that, and it's working beautifully. And one of the reasons we wanted that done was because I didn't want to give my 3-minute comments after you had already voted. I wanted you to be able to hear it. There are a few things that I think are pretty important that we're dealing with in the board agenda throughout the whole year. Last meeting, we dealt with the bond and levy and the living of borders. I would like to have the board consider the possibility, when you have very large items that have a lot of input, could we, as members of the community, be able to, could you open it up and have comments made from us in the community? When I read the board agenda before I come to the meeting and pick up some of the attachments, the discussion that the board makes is immensely important. And I sometimes would like to make a comment or ask a question. And under the structure of our board right now, that's not possible for me to ask any more questions after this 3 minutes that I'm doing right now. And I'd like to have the board consider if the possibility on very large or pertinent items that we could open it up or ask questions from the group. There's, typically only 2 or 4 of us here, and I'd like to be able to ask the questions of the board. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Can I ask you a question?
No.
How's,
Go ahead.
how soon, if you see this agenda, do you not feel like you have time to maybe contact one of us up here or Dr. Gee? Well, I'm just curious because please, we want to hear. It's just, I'm not sure how that is going to be structured.
I'm not sure how to be structured, but I leave it up to you. Like last time, we had 34 individuals who made comments to the board, and we made decisions and things. We only had 34 people reporting. I probably would have asked for some information to call you and talk to you individually, and I've called each one of you sitting here on the board about different items. That's okay, but I also want it to be sometimes made public, or the question may be bigger than just for my own edification. I may want it to be put into the discussion when you make the decision.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just make one comment on that, I think under state law, to be officially a public meeting, open public meeting, it would have to be
A
posted
hearing.
and advertised, and there's a whole statute on that. And that some of the agendas that we've had have been advertised according to law.
And I know the rulings under the public meeting, the open public
It has
meeting.
to be a public
I'm just
hearing.
wondering if I ask a question or if we ask to put comments in, does that make it an open public meeting? Or does that just give us more information on the topic that we're discussing?
I would think it would be a public hearing.
This is a.
It's just it's a meeting open in public. And you have, does that make sense? There's two different things. A public hearing would be where, yes.
Public hearing.
Oh, we're so glad you're here, Dr. Gee.
Public hearing would be different than
Right.
what I'm proposing.
You're asking for this venue.
Yes,
Yep,
I'm not asking for an open public.
we can
meeting.
certainly see what our options are. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Patty.
All right. You got anything? Come on, you can do it.
Really, not really. Mike Galloway, I'm kind of here backing Patty. I was just very disappointed at the last school board meeting that the hearing for, that there was not a public meeting on the hearing for the boundaries. I'm certainly not opposed to changing the boundaries. It's pretty much the only choice you had. However, when the discussion of waivers came up, I had a lot to comment on and was not able to. So I just felt like maybe that might have been a time when a public hearing might have been in order.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. You guys ready?
Mhm.
Do we need to make an amendment in the consent agenda? Go ahead.
I move that we approve the consent agenda with just one adjustment of the date on letter J. Instead of August 9th, it's August 11th, as far as visiting schools.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion before we approve? All right.
No.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right. Let's move on to our discussion items. We're going to have Promise Academy give us a report.
Good evening. I am Rick Hale, and I'm the school leader at Promise Academy, the public charter school that is authorized by the Middleton School District out at the Idaho Youth Ranch. Scott Curtis, who's the CEO of the Youth Ranch, wanted to join me here today with some comments. He was not able to make it, but he did leave some comments for me to share. He writes, Idaho Youth Ranch is proud to partner with Promise Academy for the quality education of our youth at the Residential Center for Healing and Resilience. We're witnessing lives transformed. The educational experience at Promise Academy is a significant part of the success these youth and families are experiencing as they work to overcome significant behavior issues and to manage them and successfully return to their homes and their home schools. Please accept our sincere appreciation for the integral role that Middleton School District plays in making the Promise Academy Charter School possible and consistent with your schools. Every child is learning every day. So this is my annual report. So this report is actually our kind of wrap up from the last school year. It's up here on the screen, and you have a copy of this as well. So during the 24-25 school year, Promise Academy served 59 students. They weren't all there at the same time. It was over the course of the year. 7 of those were day students for at least part of the school year. We have many residential students. Those are our students who live there as residential youth in the therapeutic program. But we are open to day students as well. Sometimes a student will come as a day student and then transition into becoming a residential student. Many times they'll be a residential student, and they, as they transition out, they'll remain a day student before they transition back into their home district. So 59 students, 7 of those were day students. We had 17 male students and we had 42 female students. This is a trend that we have noticed since we opened. We have more girls than boys, and that is true right now on our campus as well. 5 of our students came to us in 6th grade, 4 in 7th grade, 8 in 8th grade, 13 students were in 9th grade, 13 were in 10th grade, 10 were in 11th grade, and 6 were in 12th grade. This has also been consistent that our 9th and 10th grade classes tend to be our largest numbers of students. Of those 6 students who were seniors during their time at Promise Academy, well, I want to report this to the district so that you guys can know kind of what we're doing with those kids that are graduating or very close to graduating. So 3 of those students returned their home districts and then graduated with diplomas. 2 returned their home districts and were taking an extra semester essentially to graduate, and 1 was pursuing a GED. Yes.
Rick, would it be fair to say that those students that come to you are not on a track to graduate when they come to you?
Very frequently, they are not on a track to graduate because they have not been in school. They've been hospitalized. Sometimes they've been removed from school. Sometimes they've removed themselves from school. We've had several children come to us as residential students who have dropped out of school. And when they come to us, I tell them, I realize you dropped out, I just dropped you back in. And you're going to school now. So we've had students that came to us, dropped out, we dropped them back in, they returned to their home districts and are still in school.
Fantastic.
Yes, and even the GED model is really for those students that are so far behind on credits. This is not going to be possible. So we assist them, either their caseworkers or families, with the GED option. During the school year, we had a state auditor for ISAT testing come out and basically watch our ISAT testing, which is small, but we still have to do all the things that any other district has to do. We received a 100% positive report. We crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's in the way that we should for the state. 80% of our students as a whole made progress on their learning goals while at Promise Academy. Our goal is to have 100% of our students make progress. We did receive some residential students, I say some, it's a few, who turned out after a very short amount of time need a higher level of care that we offer. So we ended up being with them only for a short amount of time. 65% of students met their learning goals, so not just made progress, but actually met their learning goals while at Promise Academy. That number leaves us room to improve. And so we look forward to being able to improve in that area. We have noticed there's an amount of time, and that amount of time is about 5 months. When they're with us about the 5-month mark, they are fully engaged, both with their treatments and with their education. And that's kind of the sweet spot where we can get the most out of them. If their treatment lasts for maybe a few more months after that 5-month mark, we do start to see some diminishing returns on both sides, on both the treatment and the educational side. So we're dealing with some of that data as well, and we're trying to crunch that with the therapeutic side. Questions?
Well, so you mentioned that you saw a trend where there was a disparate number of females to males coming into the program. Can you attribute that to, and like, what are some of the things that are happening in the world that are
That's a really big question that I probably don't have a quick answer for. The clinical side, the therapeutic side, I've told you, because I've asked that very question, like, why did we see so many more girls? To be honest, I was a middle school principal for a very long time in Payette. And to me, it was like, oh gosh, 13-year-old boys, you're going to see all of them, right? But I was told that in general, the types of psychiatric issues that are treated at the facility, for a very long time now, the girls have been showing up more frequently than the boys. Some of it is reported more for girls than boys. Boys seem to just tough it out. Right? You don't need that kind of help. And so the help is sought for for daughters a little bit more than it is for sons.
Are you able to share some of the things that those treatments are around, like the things that they're struggling with?
Okay, so our students struggle with depression, so major depression. Some of our students struggle with PTSD from trauma earlier in their lives, or not that early in their lives. We have students who have practiced significant self-harm and experienced suicidal ideation and even suicide attempts in their past. And so they come to us. School has not necessarily been foremost in their minds. Sometimes they have families that are struggling with them. Sometimes they have families that are part of their struggle. And sometimes they don't have families. We get a fair amount of students out of the foster care system. Any other questions or comments?
Tell me a little bit more about the learning goals. Are these just like state standards, or are these goals that you guys are?
So these are things that we create for the kids. And they are a combination of engagement goals, academic goals, work completion types of goals, achievement, but also behavior goals. We frequently get students, as I said, that have not been attending school or that maybe kicked out of school, have had very explosive behaviors in school. So the goals are wrapped into also attending school and being there and being able to go to school all day, be in class all period, not leave. So there's the behavior aspect, there's the engagement aspect, and then there's the achievement aspect. And the behavior part is a little bit similar for everybody. It's let's get to school, let's maximize instructional time, let's do that sort of thing. And that grows as they're with us longer. We get more and more of that engagement and instructional time. And we're able to gauge the academic achievement through work completed and through assessments at the school level.
Rick, could you share how you're doing with staffing? Have you been able to maintain your staffing over the last several years? And
Yes, so we started in the 24-25 school year with 3 teachers plus myself. And 2 of those teachers had joined us from the previous year, plus a new math teacher came on. This year I've retained those 3 teachers and been able to add a dedicated special education teacher / director and a science teacher. Our numbers have grown and are projected to grow in such a way that we will support these additional 2 teachers. So we're going from 3 to 5. Our school year basically began last week because we don't really have a summer break. They go from our school year to our summer programming and then right back to another school year. We have a 231-day contract with our teachers.
thank you.
Rick, I just had one quick question. I think this is what, the second full year you guys have been in that new facility?
We're starting our 3rd school year.
Third.
We've got 2 full years and 2 summer school years.
And this facility had been touted as one of the finest in America for residential adolescents. And I was wondering how you feel the facility has lived up to that.
I would agree with that because we were one of the few that are really focused on this. This is not a detention center. It's not an institution where you just put children to have them out of sight. It really is about doing the things to get these kids back with their families. But family therapy is a huge part of the program. So the families are on site at least weekly, if not more often. So while it's not entirely unique in the country, I would say that the focus and the mission may be unique because we recognize how the families need to be a part of this. Families need to grow just like the kids need to grow. In school, we're here to give them the best educational experience we can. And sometimes you have to start from how do you come to class? How do you exist in a classroom? And then we get into academics. But we have a lot of flexibility in how we can start with a student, how we can get them engaged, a lot of hands-on work. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff we can talk about there. But we have the time to work with them. they're gonna be with us for at least 3 months, 5 months, 6 months. And we have the time to get them to that place where we can teach them how to be in school while the therapists are doing individual therapy with them, group therapy, family therapy. And it all works very closely together.
Very well, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
All right, let's have Mrs. Goodson come on up. Give us some good news.
You get to see me for another year.
Woo!
So what I've got for you is the year calendar of the presentations that I'll make forward around curriculum and assessment, various different assessments. Some of these will be the state assessments, which when we take the state assessments in the spring, then the state goes through their whole process and we won't get the final results until fall. So that's why those ones are delayed. So next month, I'll bring to you the AP results of the students, numbers of students and students who passed the AP exams, the SAT data. In October, I'll bring the finalized IRI report from the spring of 2025. It is worth noting that this fall, the state has adjusted the IRI, the Idaho Rating Indicator for grades K through 3. So it'll be with a new vendor. So the state is not having that assessment. The fall assessment is not formally until August, September, and it will be October this year as they switch vendors. In November, I'll be bringing forth our district assessments for you. And then in December, the pre-SAT, which is administered to our 10th graders. And in January, I'm going to give you a mid-year report on how we're doing on those interventions. In February, I will bring forth the finalized graduation rate. We've already started working through the first appeals process with the state so that we can work toward finalizing that rate.
What are we appealing?
So when students enroll in Middleton Middleton High School, if they transfer or leave Middleton High School, we have to have verification that they went somewhere else or they remain on our books, so to speak. And so through that process, we get a list of kids that we need to get the documentation on. And so that's what we mean by appealing, because sometimes they say they're moving somewhere, but the state never gets verification that they've moved there from that school. So it's just a process that we have to shore up. Numbers always start out lower than we'd like, and then they typically bump up once we can go through that appeals process. In March, I'll bring forth any new course proposals and the curriculum adoption for the year. And then in June, I'll bring forth the engagement surveys that we send out in the spring.
So I just have a question as far as ELA.
Yeah.
And not being able to get the actual curriculum that we wanted to. When are we going to start that process for?
We'll start the second half of that ELA process this fall on the reading comprehension and the writing side.
Okay,
Yep, we'll start that this fall in conjunction with our science adoption. That's what's up for this year.
because that's what will start in March
I'll bring forward a recommendation.
on the
March,
curriculum.
yeah.
No, when are we going to start the science? Looking at,
Once I have the states, we'll start some of our foundational work, but I need to have the state's approved list.
and they don't have that out yet?
That
Typically
is-
October, isn't it?
It's typically October or November before that list comes out.
Okay,
So we'll be able to get the ELA adoption, most of the second half of that mostly wrapped up before we really dive into science.
science. Okay, good. I just didn't want it to overlap because it's,
Yeah, I can start the secondary science level, as far as the foundational work. We're actually gonna meet tomorrow
okay,
and talk through that because they're content-based. So I can start rolling on the science part
okay.
sooner at the secondary level than I can at the elementary level.
Waiting on the state.
Yeah.
Okay,
But we'll start the foundational work at the secondary, the standards and the shifts.
yeah, just kind of, okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
The other question I had, when you do come back to us with the spring summative data on the ISAT and the IRI,
Mhm.
are you able to break that down So we have individual schools and grade levels?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yep, if that's what the board would like to see in that way, absolutely.
I think so.
You're fine.
I just think we need to see the individual part of it as much as you can get it down to that.
If I could just interject, the only place we wouldn't want to is if in a particular school, there's only one teacher who teaches within a specific grade level. So that's not something that's honed in on with one teacher being singled
Oh, and I
out
don't-
within a board meeting. And I know you're not looking for that, but
Okay.
what we're trying to make sure is that we don't inadvertently
Yeah.
do that.
Okay, I understand that. I
But
just,
there's only one or two spots where that would be the case.
okay,
Also, if there's certain sub-demographics where the student population is such that it would be identifiable on a student end,
okay,
I would need to redact that information.
and that's understandable.
Cindy, are you asking then for the results to be individualized for the 3 elementary schools as well?
Each individual elementary and each grade level at each elementary.
Okay. Yeah.
Just to kind of see, I just really feel like we need to work hard on getting them reading, especially before they leave 3rd grade. That's my,
Well, isn't there new things coming from the state on that as well?
As far as.
Like the reading,
Oh, yeah, the K-3 reading initiative is a huge
Yeah.
push from the state, as well as we're implementing the new curriculum that we bought on the foundational reading skills. 95% group is based on the science of reading, so it is backed by the research. We were very intentional, the committee was, in making sure that the routines that the students encountered, both in tier 1 in the classroom and their intervention and supports are the same. It's the same vocabulary, so that it's not a new learning experience for a student every time they change a grade level or
Right.
change a teacher. So
Yeah.
our teachers start that professional development tomorrow.
okay,
Awesome.
that was my next question.
Well, I just think along the lines what Cindy was asking about, I think it would be really interesting to see how the different elementary schools compare, especially where we have the overcrowding at one, to see, if that's interfering academically, and then to see after the redistricting, to see if that helps. So I think that could be very
Yep.
useful.
And that will be,
I'll make sure I break that down for you in that way.
We're talking about curriculum adoption, with those test results and some of the things we were looking at over this last year of where we can clearly improve, even though our teachers are amazing and they're doing great things with these kids. How much, or are you using that data to decide the direction of the curriculum?
Yeah,
How does that look?
we start in the fall when we look at the data. So last fall, when we started the ELA adoption, in our training room, it was posters of sticky dots, colored sticky dots. So we could see trends, grade level trends. You could see COVID in the middle of that with what happened. And then we look at subpopulation trends as well with our special ed demographic and our EL population. We also know that on ELA, particularly at the elementary level, our data had somewhat stagnated. Like we were there and you're plateauing, and so you're trying to figure out, is it the resource? Is it the instruction? Is it how we're assessing? And our teachers are very excited about this 95% curriculum and the explicit systematic instruction that it provides. In fact, it was that was the thing that everybody came back very certain about out of the gate.
Good.
I was very impressed.
Yeah.
Even observing in a classroom when they were piloting.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, granted, they were piloting, it was new to both teacher and students, but it's got potential to do good things.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
We're all on the same page.
Was that a pun?
No.
All right, let's move on to our Booster Club framework.
Okay.
Go ahead.
As a board had requested, we put together some ideas of how we could coordinate the efforts of our booster clubs and different patron support groups. We started working together, working through this framework, and Obviously, that's a draft, in case you were wondering. But as we roll through this, I just wanted to be clear that this is just a way that we can look at putting that partnership together. The biggest thing as we start talking about finances within the Booster Club is the concern that our patrons have when any group, whether it's a Booster Club or any other kind of support that is doing fundraising, and they say in their fundraising, this is for boys basketball or girls soccer or whatever the team or organization might be. When it lists that as the recipient, folks that are donating to those groups reasonably would expect that they could come to the school to identify where those funds went and how those funds were expended by the school district. Often what we run into when it is a group that is fundraising and they're saying they're doing it for Middleton, whatever, whichever group you're talking about, they're doing that as a parent group, a separate parent group that, doesn't have an account with the school or anything like that. And so then when the parents come and ask for accountability for those funds and how those funds were used, if I was a parent and donated, I'd come to the school and say, well, I'd like to know how those funds were used. I'd like you to show me. We're unable to do that because it's been done in a private organization or private personal, oftentimes it's just one person's personal account that they are, and I'm not saying that they don't provide the service they say they were going to provide.
Okay.
It's just we don't have a paper trail that we can show to people.
It's hard to be transparent.
It's hard to be transparent when that's the case. So the primary focus of this is that as we create any kind of partner booster club that is promoting a fundraiser in service of a particular team. Now, if they're just at a game doing a fundraiser and they don't say this is from Middleton High School or basketball team or whatever, I don't know that this would have much sway over that. But if it's something that's working for one of our teams, we would expect that it meets some of these minimum criteria. So if we can roll up just a little bit, thank you, Lisa. One of the preferred, as we're looking for partnerships, or as we're talking and working together with a partnership, one of the preferred structures is that our booster clubs affiliate with the Middleton Education Foundation. Now, that Middleton Education Foundation is a 501c3, thank you. It's right up there. I should have just read it. It's already worked through that process with the IRS. And while our education foundation is relatively small, any donations that come through that are managed through that organization automatically have those benefits that come from donating to a certified IRS group that's certified by the IRS as a nonprofit. So that also provides some guidance, that the Education Foundation can provide guidance to these groups as they work into a fundraising event, because they've done it enough. And sometimes a new group that hasn't had that experience before doesn't know the things that they need to do in order to track donations and the types of paperwork and receipts that they might have to do. So we would prefer, now as a school district working with the club, we cannot require that they do that, but we can expect that. We can
with a club or
direct them.
with a sport. I guess, do clubs count in that?
Clubs would count in the same way if they are a club that is recognized by the
School
by the
district.
school district.
Okay.
Correct.
And it seems like they would want to so that they're protected with the donations.
Correct.
Because that could be very.
Oh, absolutely.
Correct. And honestly, it provides a level of protection both for those that are raising the funds and those who donate the funds.
Yes.
Because there will always be all of the required paperwork and all the required paper trails so that you could find out how the funds were used and where the funds went at any given time. So those are some of the benefits of that. we would be looking for a requirement that, and this is what I discussed before, that if a booster or fundraising entity advertises or represents it, that proceeds will support an MSD program that they either need to be managed through Middleton School District accounts, what we've got at the different schools already set up, or through the Middleton Education Foundation accounts. We would require one or the other.
How do we gatekeep that?
How do we gatekeep that? Primarily, it's being our principals and athletic directors being aware of things that are going on within their facilities. So, for instance, if there's a note that's going out on social media, or an email that's being sent, or flyers that are being distributed, or even a booth at a game, that those don't happen without principal, authorization.
So does that mean like these standards would be the only people at those games at this point, or?
Well, not necessarily.
Just the way they advertise.
If we were going to require these steps to be taken, that's what the type of organization that we would have to do. But sometimes there are groups. Let's give an example of, what's the youth?
Just use
forget the name.
junior golf.
Well, the youth one that's run by, gosh,
Parks and Rec?
somebody help me.
What's the sport?
No, it's not a sport. It's a youth community
Oh,
group.
like
Young Life.
Young
Thank
Life.
you. Young Life. I see.
What are they doing?
I got it. So Young Life will often provide some kind of a service or a booth at some of our games.
Mhm.
We provide a space. We allow them to do that. Other organizations that are similar to Young Life could come in and do the same thing. But if they're not raising money specifically sometimes they're doing it for a charity that we're not going to work through this process because it's not connected to one of the existing programs or clubs.
Yeah.
But if they were to present themselves as such.
Then
they would
have to go through this, again,
They
through
can't
this,
use the
based on
school's
this
name to
framework.
raise money.
And it's using the school's name, using a program. Because as a parent, if I walk into a building and I see, fundraiser for Middleton football, I have a reasonable expectation that money is going to Middleton football and it's being managed by the school because it says it on the signage
Mhm.
right there. If we're putting that out there, we need to require that they go through that so that we can then be transparent and accountable for the disposition of those funds.
Are we gonna have some documentation for everybody to hit and just checklist and make sure?
Exactly.
And then coming from the other direction, say somebody comes to me and they want to give $1,000 to the Middleton cross country program. I don't know if there's even a program. Should they go and ask the athletic director at the high school or?
There are different avenues. They could go to whatever school that program is based in, talking with the administrator or athletic director. They could also go to the Education Foundation, directly and just say, we'd like to donate to this program. They speak with the Education Foundation lead and that person then takes it and distributes it as they've outlined.
I see. So that seems pretty easy, pretty straightforward.
It is very straightforward, but we have to require it of folks, or we get into situations where Johnny's mom, with the best of intentions, raised money and everybody donated to that person's Venmo account. And then if that money goes, and let's say that Johnny's mom then goes and buys the baseballs for the baseball team with those funds. We as a school district, if someone were to come and say, I donated to this fund on this day, we as a school district would not have any kind of record because it was gathered by a parent privately, purchased privately, and then given, and we don't see any of that material, So those are some of those things that we would be looking at.
So this is just a draft.
This is a draft, right? And this is what we're trying to start working through and start working the details of. Would you mind scrolling up?
So you did this at Preston also.
Well, we generated created pretty robust education foundation. And then we would run everything through the education
It
foundation.
just helps to have that 501c3.
Yeah.
You can get bigger donations because it is a tax write-off.
Bless you.
Cleaner.
Sorry. So then, we would work through how the approval is being done. When we have, if we've got a booster that's in operation, they would just know that these are the expectations. The use of the district name and logo, we allow that all over the place. We just want people, if they're raising funds, because you see the Viking logo, you assume that it's a school name.
Right.
So we need to be able to control that if it's not something that's being supported by the school, that they would not be able to utilize those.
Yeah.
And then the clubs would submit annual reports regarding their fundraising activity, total rate, funds raised, how funds were spent, and so on. I put there an area for non-compliance. If they don't, what happens? Because if we were creating a policy, we would need to include that as well.
Absolutely.
So the annual reporting, who would that be reported to and when?
If they were going through the Education Foundation, it would be to the Education Foundation director.
Okay.
If it were through the school, it would be through either the athletic director or principal, whichever is responsible for the program that it's, for instance, if they were doing it for band, they wouldn't necessarily go through the athletic director, they'd go through John, or
Okay.
I'd say John, the principal of the school.
Principals, okay. So are we wanting this?
All we're doing right now tonight is
Just
getting
talking
more
about it.
discussion.
More
If there's more
discussion.
input that you would like to have it
Okay.
included.
Sounds really good.
I appreciate that.
I do like this, yeah. In terms of the transparency, especially,
Do we need to define, well, I need to look at it some more before I ask dumb questions.
I think for me, I just want to make sure it's in really clear language so that there's no question. If you pull up and open up a table with a MHS sport or anything on it, then it needs to have been approved through this process, or else you're gonna have to back it up.
And so I think what you'd end up seeing as actionable documents is you would see a policy that's based on this framework, and then there would be a what do you call it, a procedure policy.
Mhm.
That might include the form that is being used. Those would be the things that we would start developing. So based on what we've talked about here tonight, I'll start creating the policy that meets with this, as well as and once we have that policy crafted to the right degree, then we would put it as a first reading so that it can go through the normal policy process.
And that there, I know we do have something in there that does delineate that from, say, like parents of the volleyball team wanting to get, all the
Shirts.
seniors get a special shirt for the
Right.
year. It's not,
Right.
that's not equipment, that's not required, everybody can throw their $20 in the kitty and they can get them custom made.
Right.
Nobody cares, but if you're buying new nets and volleyballs and mats and,
Typically, what we're looking at is any kind of fundraiser that would go beyond the confines of parents and students that are directly participating in that. So they're all participating in it. That's often that communal group that's going to create their T-shirts or whatever. But when they are able to then ask for the funds, of grandma and grandpa, the neighbor who just stops in, the patron who comes to attend a game, they can all donate. That's when we're applying this.
Like there was a club set up at Ridley's the other day,
Yes.
and they just get your Venmo code, they offer t-shirts and a raffle and whatever
Yeah.
and stuff, but yeah, so it's, it looked like it was kind of affiliated. with
Right.
the
It
school,
just
but-
doesn't have all the clarification on it.
Yeah.
So. Okay, any other questions or recommendations as we keep working on this?
yeah,
No, I was just thinking, what do you do if you have somebody that is using our logo?
Well, first you contact them directly and just ask them not to, or to work through our process.
Okay.
If they're belligerent about it, then we would, I mean, there are legal avenues that you can go down if you need to.
Not that I think people will do that, but
I don't believe that that would be the case.
Our seasons are starting up. It's a good opportunity. We should probably have something to send out ASAP, just so that it's clear, because once football games start, then tables go up and
Right.
well,
people kind of fund their other stuff. which is
thank
great.
you for the work that you've done.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Very much.
You betcha.
Very helpful.
Any more questions on that, you guys?
No.
Let's move on to our contract for security personnel, ACS.
Okay, if I could take a second, we do have some representatives that have been serving as security guards
That'd be
for our
fantastic.
schools. If I could ask these gentlemen to come forward and introduce themselves, would you mind, gentlemen? Just
You can come up to the podium if you want.
sharing your name and where you've been serving the district in your
And
capacities.
what you like about it.
I'm Ryan Lattis. I'm actually 10% owner of the thing. I fill in at various districts, so I'm not full-time at a school.
Oh,
That's all right. Thank you.
yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm Reed Stevie. I'm at Purple Sage Elementary. This job has been, coming from a blue collar life, this has been very rewarding to work with kids and make a difference in our community. So very grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Ken Whitmer, Heights Elementary. Yeah, it's just awesome. It's important, it needs to be done. And very, very honored to have the opportunity to help keep these kids safe.
Thank you
Thank
you.
for doing
Thanks
that.
for coming too. I
Yeah,
wanted to
thank
meet
you.
you guys.
I might say, Ryan, I'm not sure when you started with applied security technology, but both Ken and Reed started with us 2 years ago when we started the program and been with us. And Ryan, so Ryan's been here that
That's
whole
awesome.
time as well. So
Great.
they've been integral parts. And as you noted last month, our principals or parents have had wonderful things to say about
Yes.
what.
I like to brag about you guys and what you do. I like to, so thank you.
It's an honor.
Very much.
For sure.
So we have the contract with us tonight. I don't know if there were specific questions that you might have had about the contract. We can go through those. If not, as I indicated, there was a slight increase just to match the increases in the cost of the insurance for the company overall, but.
And insurance has gone up everywhere.
Yeah, insurance has gone up everywhere. There's insurance that's gone as well. But there have been no other material changes other than the inclusion of the nighttime activities as a part of the payment. Last year, they attended several of our bigger events and include, they did the graduation the year before at our campus, and then several of our football games that had large numbers of folks, and they coordinated together with our local police departments, SROs, to do that. We would pay them separately, the kind of contract for that, but it was such a beneficial thing for our administrative team to have them a part of that. We just asked to put that as part of the entire, just plan on that from the beginning. And then if there's something outside of those football games that comes up, we would add that as a contracted cost, just for that event. Any questions on that?
No.
No, thank you. All right, let's move on to our fund supplemental levy.
Okay. If I could have,
You're here. Thanks for coming.
well, and we've got Brandon from Holly and Troxel doing that, helping us with the language
Perfect.
of the supplemental levy. Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Superintendent Gee. You want me to just launch into?
Yep, you can just
presentation?
launch in.
I respect Superintendent Gee for wearing a sport coat on a.
Yeah, it's kind of warm in here
I
too.
just left mine in the car.
You're totally good.
They gave me a hard time at the meeting I was at beforehand too.
I appreciate that. That's pretty long. Yeah.
So you're contemplating running a renewal of your supplemental levy at a different amount. I think my job is to talk about the taxpayer impact. There are some simple calculations for looking at the taxpayer impact. And then there are some more nuanced when we talk about all of the different monies that the state is putting towards property tax relief. So Brandon Helgeson is here from Molly Troxel with, how the ballot language will get written. And we provide those calculations, but I also want to give you a more comprehensive view of what all the different levies look like together. So I typically start out with this slide of your bond, your plant, and your supplemental. Those are the three types of voted levies school districts can have. You have a bond levy and a supplemental levy. In the Middleton School District, there is not a plant levy. And this is a slide of just all of your previous elections going back to the 2001 bond election. So there's, a lot of bond efforts that didn't make it. You're aware of those. Supplementals in 2020, it came up short of the 50%. But in August of 2020, and then again in March of 22, you had a $1.5 million supplemental levy approved. And then again in November of 2023. So the supplemental levy, and those are each 2-year cycles. So it's been at 1.5 million. So that November 2023 authorization was for fiscal 25 and fiscal 26. We're in fiscal 26. You will certify that levy for 1.5 million if you choose to. It's a choice, I assume you will. And set in here around the first week of September. What that means is this will be the last year of that authorization. So we have, at the bottom, you see the district is planning to renew its supplemental M&O at the November 2025 election for $2,476,900. So a roughly $1 million increase in the supplemental levy. Important to remember that, in order to have that levy you have 2 elections dates that are available to you as a district before, that if you don't pass it, either this election in November or in May, you would go a year without that supplemental levy. So it's become pretty high stakes when we've lost these election dates. Yeah. The next slide just gives you, this was the prior year, fiscal 2025. You haven't certified your property taxes for 26 yet. They will probably look very similar, with the exception of the bond. The bond actually, your bond payment, you have one bond that gets paid off this year, and so about a couple $100,000 reduction in that. But you see your supplemental at 1.5, the bond levy at 1.8. If you read the footnote down there, the bond levy would have otherwise been around 4.1 million, but it was offset by the state, what they call the school facility fund money, that really goes to reduce property tax levies, and the first levy it reduces is bond. So the 4.1 was offset by the 2.2 of school facility funds, and you levy the balance of 1.8. And then next year, that bond levy, like I said, it's going to be going down a little bit. So whatever you get in school facility funds will offset, whatever that lower amount is. I think this is interesting. If you look at the history, the state has provided property tax relief over the last 2 or 3 years. And you see that play out. You at the district for Middleton, in 2023, the total amount of levies for bond, supplemental, and then then there's the tort levy. It's 5.5 million. And then this past year was 3.4 million. So there's been over a $2 million reduction in the amount of property taxes in Middleton that are going to support schools, whether that's bond or supplemental. And then, of course, the tax rate, you're levying less, and so naturally, the rate per 1,000 has gone down. And that's been an ongoing trend for a long time, just because mostly because your market value has been growing. But now you have a much bigger market value and you're collecting less. And so you see your tax rates down to 81 cents per 1,000, which is also $81 per 100,000. So the legislature, as I think, asked us to start talking about it in terms of cost per 100,000. That's what needs to be on the ballot when you disclose what the potential cost of the bond or levy is. I talked about market value growth. So this slide just looks at, back in 2008, when you passed the bond for Middleton High School, your market value was under $1 billion. Now today, last year you were at 4.2 billion. We'll see what the number is for fiscal 20, that supports fiscal 26. Those aren't official until about the first week of September. But you guys lived through it. You saw the huge increase in market value, lots of new construction, home values appreciating. But that's leveled off the last couple of years, a little bit of growth in 25. But really the big message here, the real reason that the tax rate's been going down the last couple of 3 years is because of your levy less. Where do you stand? So we just looked at, by comparison to your neighbors, so we just looked at Canyon County and Ada County. You're at 81, and now we're showing you dollars per 100,000. 81. The ones that are higher than you most of those are districts with a CASA levy that about 5 school districts with CASA levies, and then Boise. And Boise's a different character because they've got their charter levy, which operates differently. But I think what's interesting is that the statewide average, if you go down a little bit, or if you, no, it's the other way. Thank you. The statewide average for fiscal 25 was $105 per 100,000, or 1.05 per 1,000. So you're below the statewide average. That statewide average 3 or 4 years ago was $350 per 100,000. Now it's 105. You're at 81. So you're below the statewide. I'm right in the middle of the neighbors. So that's really what my assignment was to do this slide. My assignment was to calculate what's the cost per 100,000 of the proposed levy of $2,476,900. And that the requirement for this ballot disclosure is that you base it on current conditions. Well, the current conditions are your market value that we have as a certified number. We don't have the new certified number for fiscal 26 yet. So we're basing this off a year-old assessed value for the district of $4.2 billion. The math is not too hard. We divide 2,476,000 into that 4.2 billion, and then multiply it by 100,000, and that comes up with 58. This last year, as you know, was at 35. So you're talking about roughly $23 per 100,000 increase based on current conditions, and that's all true. But things change. You're going to levy next year at the 1.5. Your market value may go up, it may not, it may go down, we don't know. You may get more or less school facility funds. I think you're going to get more. My read of the statewide data that is published and available would suggest at least a 65% increase in school facility funds statewide. The appropriation from the state was for a 75% increase, but sales tax monies don't quite come in as they were originally projected. But the way the numbers look to me, I think you'll see a pretty substantial increase in those school facility funds. So what does that mean? It means that, yes, this is based on current conditions, but in all likelihood, it's going to be less. But this is the number you need to use in your ballot. And then I wanted to take a little bit longer term view with, okay, In 2025, you were $81 per 100,000, all in, bond, supplemental, tort. 26, based on current conditions, this assumes, my assumptions are at the bottom, that the, no increase in your tax base, the school facility fund amount stay the same, your tax rate actually drops to 62. Why? Because the bond amount's going down. And so, not even factoring in the 65% increase in the school facility funds. So you already have a built-in drop. So we go from 81, 62, and then in 27, when the new higher supplemental amount kicks in, it goes to 83. And then it's authorized for 2 years, so we projected out to 2028. And again, because your bond payments are, you're getting bonds paid off over time, and their payments are getting lower, that you'd be back to 81. So really, all in, the taxes really aren't gonna look a whole lot different than they did last year, based on current conditions. And again, I think it'll actually be better than that because of the higher school facility funds. Then we talked about, so one of the things Superintendent Gee asked me to look at is just so let's look at all this in terms of the average home value. So we've got the median home value according to Zillow as of January 1 of 2025, which your current market value is based on. Is 510,000. You have a homeowner's exemption of 125,000. You get to subtract that. You only get homeowner only gets taxed on the difference unless it's a second home. So if it's your primary residence, your median home value that you get taxed on would be $385,000. We've got, so in fiscal 26, we're projecting a total tax rate for everything of $62 per 100,000. We divide 385,000 by 100,000, so 3.85 times the 62, and you got $239. So on the average home next year, $239. If the supplemental passes on the average home, the total tax bill would be $319. So that's an $80 increase. Oftentimes, school districts will say, well, how much is that a month? It's less than $7 a month that you're looking for. And again, I think that'll all get offset by your higher school facility funds. But these are the disclosures that you need to be prepared to have. And then I just threw in a few other things on, because this is stuff I've been looking at for the last 3 years, but I know school trustees don't think about this perhaps every day. You've got House Bill 292, that was the introduction of the school facility funds. That's the money that provides property tax relief. And it goes first to offset bonds, and then to offset the supplemental levy, and then plan. Now they've inserted something between 1 and 2 this last year. I haven't updated the slide, and that's that safe public school facility cooperative funding. And that's to address unsafe conditions, unsafe buildings. You apply to the state to get, basically funds through that program, and then you would use the school facility fund to repay it. You don't have that in place. It may be something you consider in the future, but if you did, it would go in between 1 and 2. Your existing bond pays off in 2030. So, once that's paid off, that money's, the money that we're going to toggle over to offset the supplemental levy. And if it gets to the point where it's more than all, it's higher than your bond and supplemental levy, and you don't, if the amount you're getting from the state is more than all of your levies, then your levy zero and whatever's left over goes into a plant fund. You can use it for repair or maintenance, things like that. It's probably a ways off, but it is certainly a possibility. And then House Bill 521, sometimes I get a rural school district calling me in a panic saying, I can't use the school modernization money to offset my levies. Well, no, you can't. The school modernization money is different than the school facility funds. They sound similar. So I understand why they get confused, but school modernization was a program passed by House Bill 521, and that's where you got basically grant money from the state of 18.8 million that is for new construction or repair or replacement of existing facilities, major maintenance, capital items. So that's money that we've talked about before, and I know you guys know about it. But the school facility funds, again, and that's the property tax relief, that was 2.2 million last year. That's the number that I think, statewide, if you got the 65% increase that we're expecting, statewide, I did the math already, so I don't have to do it in my head. That number could grow to 3.7 million.
Wow.
So if you just say the 65% increase in that number is 1.5 million. And that would more than offset the $1 million you're asking for, increase or something like that. Can't count on it.
No.
The spreadsheet hasn't come out from the State Department of Education. But again, the legislature, the appropriation was for a 75% increase. That's pretty much the extent of my presentation. And then Brandon has all the legal stuff for you guys to consider on this, but before you did that, I want you to understand the numbers.
Thank you. It was a great presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Brandon?
We'll see that.
Good evening, trustees and superintendent. Thanks for having me. You may recognize me from last talking with you guys at the proposed bond election earlier this year. This is a little bit less in depth. If you want to pull up the supplemental levy resolution, that's what's on the agenda for tonight. If you'd like, it's a little bit simpler than the bond election resolution. A little bit less goes into that since it's fairly straightforward, but just wanted to briefly discuss what's in the resolution and then just make myself available for any questions that you might have. Eric's already kind of touched on all the major points, so I don't want to reiterate too much of what he's already said. But this resolution, again, is fairly straightforward. It's calling for a supplemental levy resolution of the November election. So this would go on the ballot. It approves like the bond election resolution or any other supplemental election resolution that you've looked at. It approves the ballot language, the form of that, and then the form of the notice of the election that the county clerk publishes. This was present. So if you want to stay here for a second, this was somewhat recent. So when you guys last ran your supplemental levy, this was a relatively new law that went into effect in 2022 that requires you to put in the anticipated expenditures that you're going to be using the levy funds for. So you have to list the purposes that the levy funds are going to be used for and then an approximate amount that you're allocated to each of those uses. So that's kind of like an additional transparency mechanism that the legislature wanted to include in supplemental levy elections, because usually ballots just used to read for all legal maintenance and operating expenses of the district, and nobody really knew what those are going to be used for. So this is this year's breakdown of how that's been allocated. And then the rest of it is, again, so this form language that the legislature requires for disclosure, so covering the tax impact, which Eric just went over. Again, it's a worst case scenario tax impact that doesn't take into account all the outside factors of bonds paying off and facilities funds that the school district is receiving. It's just required by law, and especially on supplemental levy election ballots, you're not able to get into too much else. Kind of prohibits you from talking about anything else. So you're just getting worst case scenario in case your market value stays the exact same and you don't get facilities funds, and the bonds will pay off, but that doesn't come into account for calculating the tax impact on the supplemental levy for the following year. So that's essentially what this covers. I don't know if you have any questions or anything additional that you would like me to cover, but happy to talk about it.
Brandon, could you go over what a motion for something like this would need to include?
Sure, yes. So the resolution title for this is a lot shorter than the bond election resolution. So just, somebody can make a motion for a motion to approve the supplemental levy election resolution. So just the bolded or the capitalized title on the top of the resolution. And that should cover it unless, you guys want to make any changes to this and you can approve it as amended,
A
but.
resolution calling for
otherwise,
supplemental.
Yep, exactly. That's it. Of
Thank you.
course.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Could I share a little bit about the rationale for some of the increases that we
Please.
were looking at? Would you mind going back to that resolution? And just up to those amounts for each category. The first thing, and I'll ask Mrs. Krantz to jump in if there's anything that I'm missing or misspeaking on. The first thing we did when we were looking at this resolution and the amounts that we would be asking for is we tried to take into account the inflation that has occurred since we established the 1.5. With the 1.5, we've been using it over the last several bond election cycles for essentially the same things. We haven't really varied too far afield from that. However, when you're talking about certified teachers, the positions to hire that many positions would have increased over this amount of time, and to the degree that our pay has increased. When you start looking at curriculum adoption, there's been increases in those costs. Pay to participate fees, classroom supplies, each of those are things that have been increased over time. So adjustments were made to the total amounts for certified teachers, classified staff, pay to participate fees, curriculum adoption, classroom supplies, and building maintenance to adjust for the amount that those things are costing us now, as opposed to 2018. When we made that shift to 1.5. A couple of other strategic adjustments that we wanted to include, or we were recommending to include, would be the resource officers, security officers. We made an increase to that because of the success of our current security officer program at our elementary schools. It's been requested that we look at expanding that to our high school and middle school as well. Those campuses are very large. They have a school resource officer on site. The school resource officer is often assigned to other schools within our district. So for instance, our high school resource officer also is looking at, goes to Heights Elementary and Purple Sage Elementary. So if they have a legal issue that we need a resource officer to manage, they leave the high school. And when they leave the high school does not have an armed presence to support. So we've been looking at an opportunity to add those security officers at the middle school and high school. The school administration has expressed their desire to have those officers because they're there all the time. They don't leave. They're there monitoring the entire day throughout the school year. So we saw that as a net positive, but to do that, we would need additional funding to make that happen. Another thing that we have included is technology. $250,000 was not, we did not have a category for technology. That would be primarily used for the replacement of student devices. Now that would be primarily at our secondary schools, middle school and high school. When during COVID, there was an influx of dollars that we utilized to get the devices that our students are using right now. We're getting to the end of the lifespan of those devices, and having additional dollars to assist in the replacement of those devices would be something that would be important to maintain.
Those are mainly laptops.
Mainly laptops, yes. The Chromebooks that we have, so. I didn't mention the transportation. Transportation was on there before. It increased with just an inflationary increase as well. But that is specific to extracurricular transportation. I want to make sure it's clear that we have not been utilizing funds from the supplemental levy to supplement our regular day routes, which primarily get the funding from the state on that. This would be extracurricular transportation that we put that on. And so if the levy were not to pass, and then we tried it again in May and it didn't pass again, these are the categories where we would have to make the cuts to be able to maintain our budget. So this is kind of the long and short of what we've been looking at and what we would recommend. Mrs. Krantz, any other additional follow-up?
You did fine, thank you.
So I'm looking at numbers, just the population wise in Middleton. 2010, there's 5,500 people. We ran a bond for $1 million. And then the next time they're looking at population seriously, again, it's in 2020, where we've almost doubled. There's 9,400 people.
That's just city limits.
Yeah, that's just city limits. And then so we run one for 1.5. And then this year we're projected to be about 12,000 people in city limits. That's not just in the district. And then if we look from 2020 to 2024, we're jumping from $1.5 million to 2.4. But with inflation, that 1.5 back then only has that would basically be 1.8 anyways, just to maintain that purchasing power.
Correct.
So, I mean, we're gonna have some rough times moving kids around and trying to level the population of the schools out to make sure we're doing the best for our community. It's not fun, but I don't see that we're wasting money right here. I mean, it makes sense with population growth just in the past 15 years.
Even the past 5 years.
And another thing that we looked at as we were analyzing that number is what Mr. Herringer alluded to there, that over the next 3 years, you would expect, even if the supplemental levy were to pass and everything stayed the same as it was, and we didn't see an increase, which we think there will be, but we don't see an increase in those state funds. Even with that, we would see a maintaining the taxes that we have. Tax rate or tax dollars that we would be asking from our patrons right now. We tried to do that in a way that was not going to make a significant jump for our taxpayers over the next 2 years after this one. That was an intentional thing on our part to try and keep that at the same level. And like I said, we could actually see it go down, assuming the increase in those dollars comes. Mr. Herringer, that we would know that by September.
Yep.
How much that plant facility increased. So if, as a school board, if you would like, I can report on that in our September, most likely by our September board meeting.
Yeah.
Usually.
We better know by then.
Yeah. Just so that we would not be able to change the messaging that went out, but so that you, in having conversations with people within your zones, would be able to say, we have to advertise that because that's the law it's based on those numbers, but we actually got 65% more, whatever that is, we can give that number to you in that September meeting.
The number for the actual population of our school district.
Of our students?
Of the actual people that live within.
Oh, the people.
That's just the market value. You showed us like what everything's worth.
Right, the value of
Yeah.
Correct.
We think it would be closer to like 40,000 for the whole district as far as the population.
Oh, he was looking just within city.
I was just looking at
limits.
city limits.
Yeah.
What is our projected population for our school?
For this year?
12 this year.
For this year, we are right now, I can log in pretty quick. The only thing, it's hard to say right now because once school starts, any students that we anticipated that were going to show up that don't show up and their parents just didn't tell us, we haven't removed those right now.
What did we end up at at end of last?
4,440.
How many?
4,440.
About right.
And last year we ended around 4,300. So an increase in about 100 students. But we'll see. I mean, there's still gonna There's still gonna be some,
I'm just looking at historical data and it just looks like, I mean, just our student population alone from 2010 to now, just comparing some numbers, has gone up almost 1,000 students in our
Correct.
district. And we don't know what's gonna end up this year.
correct.
So,
But a 25% increase.
yeah.
Any other questions?
This may be a stupid question, but the pay to
Participate.
participate, I don't understand that.
So what that is the
I
state,
understand what it is.
right,
but-
I'm just gonna give you the amount, so how we got to
Okay,
that amount. And that was actually more set even prior to my arrival, but I'll go through that. The state does not provide funds for extracurricular activities. So anything that we do for extracurricular activities either comes from our general fund or from money that is raised by ticket sales and participation in those programs. A lot of, public schools in general want to keep that, how much it costs each student as low as possible. But most schools have an amount that each student would have to pay to participate in those programs.
and after 2 sports or 3 sports,
But
it's free.
yeah, those kind of arrangements are made throughout the state of Idaho and how we do that. So when they put this supplemental levy in place in the first place, they looked at it and said, we're going to try and lower the amount that individual families would have to pay so that it's not as high. And so they established, I think the first time it was around 40,000. When in 2022, it was at 65,000 and we maintained it at 65,000 that the supplemental levy pays, because our cost is around 300,000 to 400,000 that we pay towards extracurricular activities in general. So it's not the whole amount anyway, but we had established that in order to make this work and not cut other programs, we were going to require that students pay a certain amount.
Okay.
If the bond didn't pass or the levy didn't pass, this 85,000 that we're discussing here would then be a requirement that we would then divide that out amongst all the programs and all the families. So the amount that individual families would have to pay would increase in order to maintain the programs as they stand.
All right, thank you.
You bet. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Very helpful. And thank you guys for being.
Yes,
Yes.
always, we appreciate it. All right, let's move on to policy.
So we're bringing a new group of policies forward tonight for first readings. This is the second update that came from the Idaho School Board Association after the legislative session. And so most of these updates tonight are reference to House bills that passed, Senate bills that passed, that made changes to policies we already had on the books. And it just made some changes to wordings within those policies. And so I had sent the summary sheet. Are there any specific questions on any of the first reading policies that we're bringing forward tonight?
The first reading. No, just that we are recommended to have that new one.
The flag.
9803, yeah, the
Yes.
flag event,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't think I have any.
And then just the 7077P3, that supervisor's certification, that's a federal programs piece. The procedure that had been intact, we are no longer utilizing that. There was an updated form that we utilize. And so that one is really just to update it to the form that we currently utilize, that we submit time and effort to the state with our federal programs. And then second readings, there is no changes from the first readings to the second readings of the transportation policies. And So with that being said, and with the review that's gone on, I would recommend that we go ahead and move these into policy tonight.
The second reading ones?
Yeah, if everyone's comfortable. And if we want to wait another month, we're fine doing that as well.
So I'm just curious, on 8100 transportation, we do transport or don't to daycares? From daycares?
We currently do have stops along the way. So like, for instance, there is a bus that stops in the parking lot over by Little Lakes Daycare.
Okay,
So there are routes built in that do pick
Okay.
up children from those locations.
okay. And that's parents let you know ahead of time or let the bus company?
They coordinate with the bus company
Okay,
on that, yep.
okay. And then,
And those kind of things actually save the district dollars because it's a concentrated stop rather than having to go to the far-flung
Individual
places where those
houses.
individuals are.
yeah, no, we pick up, do we drop off?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know about you guys with questions.
Go ahead.
The 8180 and the 8180P, that's brand new.
Yes.
Okay, and it's required. It's something that came through the legislature as far as,
And I'm just pulling up my crosswalk because we had some old policies in place as well, and I just want to reference to you which old policies those. We had a few old policies that, those new policies do consolidate some of those older policies into the new language that these new policies have.
okay,
And so the addition of these would help eliminate 3 other policies where some of that language was also represented in the old policy as well.
okay. I guess just a question I have in terms of when is this training done? It's a new procedures, outlines, bus drivers' responsibilities. You know, they have to be stated in policy or procedure. I mean, does everybody understand, you know, like driving, I'm sure they know how to drive safely, but ensuring passengers don't engage and how is that all done?
How the training done?
Yeah,
You go ahead.
That is taken care of by our bus company, Rural Transportation. They're required to provide the training as part of the contract that they have with us.
okay,
So they provide the training to their drivers and the drivers then manage that. I mean, they manage whether their drivers have met all those criteria.
okay.
So what we need with this new policy is just to make sure that we're following up with Gina and the director of Gina Dennis. She is responsible for making sure that those things happened. We've shared all of these policies with Gina as we started into the first reading so that she was aware of what the new expectations would be as well.
Okay, so she'll share with you the plan that they have set
Correct.
up. And then in one of these, it talks about how students are to be instructed on safety/emergencies. That's 8190.
That's actually done at a certain point every year. Do they do it twice or just the once?
Twice.
They do it once in the fall and once in the spring. Every student goes through all the emergency procedures while they're actually sitting on the bus. So we plan with schools to let them know that the bus routes are going to be a little bit longer during those weeks, so that each bus driver can go through the safety procedures with students. And they actually do drills of
The
exiting the evacuation of the
drill.
bus. So we do that
Okay.
twice a year, and they typically will do that in the parking lot of the schools. They just park off to the side while the other buses are going through.
Okay. So we're depending on that.
Caldwell
bus company.
Transportation to do it all, yes.
But otherwise, the driver certification, all that, that's just according to state law.
Yep.
And they
Yes.
Yep.
Class C commercial driver's license. And
Correct.
I know
Wouldn't
there's
get
been some
funding.
changes on that. Used to be you didn't have to do the schooling on that. You could just take a test and get it out of their extensive schooling requirements for that. Yeah.
All right. So they do pre-trips and post-trip inspections on their buses and everything?
Yep. In fact, they have they have a procedure. There's essentially a folder at the back of the bus that they have to go and get, and they hang a sign in the back of the bus so that the director can actually drive down the length and make sure all the signs have been placed when they return to the bus garage.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Any other questions on any first or second readings?
The summary really helps a lot. I appreciate that. Instead of having to go
Yes,
through and read
that-
every policy.
So if you guys are comfortable, I would recommend moving all the first readings to second readings. And then I would recommend moving, with the exception of the procedure 7077P3. With that being a form that we utilize for federal programs, if you're comfortable, I would say we could go ahead and move that forward into policy. The other ones go to a second reading, and then under policy review, the second readings, I would recommend moving all of those forward into policy if you're comfortable with where we stand on those.
Any discussion?
It's a lot of numbers.
He's gonna be brave. So 7077P3 is moved to policy.
Yeah.
So you could probably lump that in with those second reading ones as well, whoever's brave enough to make the motion.
Yeah.
Well, let's take care of the first reading and move those, well, I'll entertain a motion to move them to a second reading.
We need to name all of those
Yes,
numbers.
you do.
Okay. So I move that we move from first reading to second reading the following proposed policies: 1500P, 3005, 3010, and 3010P1, 3265, policy 3525, 3340, 4105, 9803, all,
Yep, go ahead.
yeah, all to second reading.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right, and then the rest, if everyone's good, we'll move to policy.
Okay, I move that we move the second reading policies into policy, and they are policy 5825, policy 8100, policy 8220, 8120, excuse me, policy 8140, policy 8140P, policy 8160, 8180, 8180P1, as well as moving the 777-P3 into policy.
And we need these two.
8190 and 8195.
Oh, did I miss those?
Yep.
Oh, excuse me, 8190 and 8195 as well.
Thank you. It's all right. That was a lot. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second that.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Let's move to our action items. I would entertain a motion to approve the security officer contracts.
I make a motion that we approve the security officer contract for the year 2025 and 2026.
Second that.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 I move that we approve the supplemental levy language.
And then you gotta
You
read,
just need to read the whole,
Oh,
it's just the title there, the resolution calling for supplemental levy.
the resolution calling for supplemental levy election.
Okay, I'll second that.
thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the acceptance of the annual review of the Promise Academy Charter.
I move that we approve the acceptance of the annual review of the Promise Academy Charter.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you so much for coming, everybody.
Yes.